But democracy is a horrible form of government.
You got to pay all kinds of taxes. You got to get a license for a church. You got to get a license to blow your nose, and a license to have children, and a license to death. And the truth is, they can't make people have a license to have children, things like that.
I hate to keep interrupting you here, but I want to understand this, okay? My son, when he got married, elected not to get a marriage license. Mm-hmm. You don't need state's permission to do something God said you can do. God ordains marriage, okay?
Right.
And I get some Christians even today that still don't understand, that they think I'm some kind of radical. I guess it's because everybody's been doing this for so long.
Yeah.
And when somebody comes along and says, hey, I've got my freedom, they don't understand it. Or they resent it, or they're jealous of it, or something. Exactly. I don't know what it is.
And now I have a lot of appreciation for the battle Christ was fighting with tradition.
Right.
What do you mean? My parents got the marriage license. Their parents got it's really tradition that we're following, in not God's law. And marriage is a very interesting topic, and everyone's just so familiar with going ahead and getting that license.
Let's just take that. Explain. If you get a marriage license from the state, you don't need the state's permission to get married. Okay,
That's
obviously.
correct.
But if you decide to do that, that becomes a contract.
That's right.
Now, contractual law is very different than constitutional law.
That's right.
The Constitution gives us as people the right to make all the contracts we want.
That's right.
If I say, John, I'm going to pay you $1,000 an hour for the rest of my life, sign the contract. Of course, I'd be stupid to do that, but hey, if I signed the contract and didn't fulfill it, you take me to the local court, they find me guilty, they throw me in jail, take away all my property, and give it to you to pay the debt.
That's right.
And I can stand there all day long and say, I've got a constitutional right. Well, yes, you do, but I made the contract.
That's right.
And that's where I was a fool. That's what Proverbs 6 warns us about.
It's kind of interesting. You talk a lot about when people ask you, Kent, do you think we should be teaching creation in public schools? And I like the way you say, well, you're asking the wrong question. Let's talk about, should we have public schools first, then that second question kind of takes care of itself.
That's the real question.
And what they're doing to us, they're giving us the same sucker punch. They're setting us up, doing this, and then they're about to pop punches over here. And this thing about same-sex marriage comes up. And the real issue isn't same-sex marriage, right? Let's talk about the real question is, can the state sanction and create a marriage?
Any marriage?
No.
Same sex otherwise. Yeah.
They can't. So once they've got the Christians to buy into this idea that it's the state that creates the marriage, that then, well, if they can create a marriage, now they can define the terms, whether it's male-male, female-female.
Sure.
And
because we've already given them the right to make the decision. They don't have the right to make the decision.
That's right. So and there's some other interesting things that happen. I know here in Florida there's language to this effect that says that the fruits of the marriage shall be deemed wards of the state. Okay? So if you produce children. You produce children, all right? Now if they are wards of the state and they say don't spank the state's children, it's a simple matter of contract. Don't spank. Don't sit there and say, well, the Bible says that I have to. The matter is, what do you do with your children? And
you gave them to the state, so you made a contract.
Exactly.
Okay, suppose somebody did that. Somebody's watching this tape and they say, hey, I did that. I got a marriage license and I spanked my kid and I'm in trouble. HRS or whoever's after me now. Are we getting ahead of ourselves? How to get out of that? How to undo the damage by making that contract? Or you want to cover that later? Or is this a good time?
I think, I had somebody call me about that last week.
Okay.
And their idea was, well, should we go and get a divorce now? Well, no, don't further validate the thing by getting a divorce. Because what are you saying? You're sitting there saying, well, we recognize that we had one of these marriages. Now we're trying to go and seek further remedy from somebody that created damage already.
Right.
I think the truth of the matter is was there ever a bona fide contract where all the terms and conditions were held on the table? And so I don't recommend doing things like trying to get a divorce and all this stuff.
Can you fill out papers, take them to the courthouse, have them file stamped, that undoes your marriage license, at least undoes the contract with the state.
Well, what I like to do is go ahead and include that marriage license within our filing on our commercial affairs. So basically, that, just like what we're going to be doing with the straw man, where we've been filing a UCC, one financing statement against the character down here, laying a claim by the real man against the straw man. Every one of these quasi-contracts is going to be named within that UCC filing.
Okay, so they made 6, 8, 10, 20 contracts. Each of these contracts, marriage license, social security number, driver's license, whatever, you lay claim to those.
Right.
So then it doesn't matter. So now if the state says you can't spank your children, you say, excuse me, I own this contract. You don't own this contract anymore.
That's right.
So that's really the proper way to get out of this, isn't it?
It totally flips everything.
Okay.
And
does that work? I mean, in reality?
It has been working all over the country very well. And once the process is done right, it's been working very well.
We've made all these contracts, marriage license, driver's license, etc. We just simply privatize them. They belong to me now.
That's right.
And so and the government says you have to renew this driver's license. Send us $50 please, or something. What do you do?
If you wanted to, you could go down and renew that, or you could use a commercial process on that.
And would take hours and hours to explain a commercial process?
Yeah, it probably would.
Okay.
Get into it, and we'd talk another couple hours probably.
Because basically when they created this straw man, they created an account, and you got hard to redeem yourself.
That's right.
To get out of that.
It's easy.
So, there's another factor, though, that I think some people miss. Because I'm not under the law here, I could drive 100 miles an hour, 200 miles an hour on the interstate if I wanted, as long as I don't hurt anybody, according to my Constitution.
Right.
I cannot be deprived of my property without due process, and there has to have been an injured party. If I don't wear a seatbelt, I didn't injure anybody.
That's right.
The state can require their person to wear a seatbelt because that belongs to them, and they're concerned about him.
Right.
But if I've redeemed him,
it's interesting because in Florida,
I could drive 100 miles an hour, 200 miles an hour on the interstate if I wanted, as long as I don't hurt anybody, according to my Constitution.
Right.
The reason a lot of churches don't want to get unincorporated is because if they get unincorporated, they feel they can no longer give out tax receipts for their members who give money,
right.
Which goes back to what Jesus said, the love of money is the root of all evil. The fact of the matter is you can give out a tax receipt if you want.
That's right. I think
I give out receipts to people. If they donate to our ministry, we can give them a receipt.
Yes.
I'm not a 501c3 corporation. We give them receipts all day long.
That's
no
right.
problem.
I think the other thing people need to do, they need to start reading some of the foundational law that set the country up.
If you want.
That's right. I think
I give out receipts to people. If they donate to our ministry, we can give them a receipt.
Yes.
I'm not a 501c3 corporation. We give them receipts all day long.
That's
no
right.
problem.
I think the other thing people
Some people get upset with me because I even mention all this IRS type stuff in my seminar. They say, you should talk just about creation. Well, it all ties together.